He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
This is The Alex Marlow Show. It is another historic news occasion, and not for the reason you think, because the impeachment movement has begun. Here's Al Green.
I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed and dastardly deeds done.
Dastardly deeds proposed. That is the new standard for impeachment in this country.
I also rise to say that the impeachment movement is going to be a grass-up movement, not a top-down. The people have got to move forward. The people have to demand it. And when the people demand it, it will be done. I did it before. I laid the foundation for impeachment, and it was done.
And how did that go? You impeached him, and then he survived, and then he became president again, and now he's undoing everything that you guys have done in the last couple decades. Okay, go on.
Nobody knows more about it than I. And I know that it's time for us to lay the foundation again. On some issues, it is better to stand alone than not stand at all. On this issue, I stand alone, but I...
All right. So, hey, you heard it here first about on this show, but I was the first to predict that if Trump gets reelected, he will be impeached for a third time. Now, he might not, because the Republicans got the House, and the new polling is just looking sensational. We're talking about 30% of the country identifies Democrats now, so it's a Republicans going to have a huge registration gap, and it does feel like the perhaps Republicans actually gain seats in the midterm, which is not always the case. Sometimes there's a little balancing, redoubling of power, rebalancing of power. Might not happen this time. So Republicans might get more. But if the Democrats ever take over the House again, of course he's going to get impeached, because all he has to do is dastardly deeds proposed. He doesn't have to do anything. He just has to say something dastardly. I just really enjoyed that because of my prediction that they would try to impeach him. I also like these politicians that are from another era where you could say nothing very well, and you could use that to get all the way to the upper echelons of American society. He has nothing to say. We're going to impeach him for dastardly deeds. He won't give one specific, but he does sound great. He sounds like an incredible orator when he says it. And I feel like people have moved on from that. Sometimes they want you to actually have something to say. But I started the show there, and now I will go where you know we're going. Trump has proposed taking over Gaza. Some people are calling it Gaza Lago. What else are they calling it? The MAGA Strip. We're going to call it over there. What are we going to do? We're taking over Gaza, guys. We're building golf courses. We're moving on. America First is over. We are doing Gaza first. This is the ultimate daddy's home moment. Now, I'll play some audio. Trump's going to walk through what we're doing, but just keep this in mind. This is all he's doing. The only thing to take out of this that I know for sure is that what Trump is implying here is that whoever's been running this thing for too long is not going well. So daddy's back, and he's going to take care of everyone. He's going to put everyone in their place. He's going to regulate. Keep that in mind. Let's go through some of these clips. This is history in the making, a surprise announcement from Trump yesterday with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. Here we go.
Today, I'm delighted to welcome Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu back to the White House. It's a wonderful feeling and a wonderful event. We had fantastic talks, and thank you very much with your staff. He's the first foreign head of state to visit during our administration, and Bibi, I want to say it's an honor to have you with us. Over the past 4 years, the U.S. and the Israeli alliance has been tested more than any time in history. But the bonds of friendship and affection between the American and Israeli people have endured for generations, and they are absolutely unbreakable. They are unbreakable. I'm confident that under our leadership, the cherished alliance between our two countries will soon be stronger than ever. We had a great relationship. We had great victories together 4 years ago. Not so many victories over the past 4 years, however. In my first-term Prime Minister and I forged a tremendously successful partnership that brought peace and stability to the Middle East like it hadn't seen in decades. Together, we defeated ISIS. We ended the disastrous Iran nuclear deal, one of the worst deals ever made, by the way, and imposed the toughest ever sanctions on the Iranian regime. We starved Hamas and Iran's other terrorist proxies, and we starved them like they had never seen before. Resources and support disappeared for them. I recognized Israel's capital, opened the American embassy in Jerusalem, and got it built, by the way.
Okay, so one thing that you always have to do with Trump is you always have to take him seriously, but not literally. That's the famous quote that Selena Zito had, which was really brilliant. And so you got to think about, what is he actually doing here? So there's a lot of people in Trump's base, hardcores, that no longer like Israel. They're not into Israel. The Republicans have, generally speaking, been a pro-Israel group of people. And so there's a lot of Trump's most activist people online who don't like Israel anymore. And that's changed, pretty recent. And Trump's sending a signal, we're with Israel, calm down, we're still with them. And he's also been on the outs with Netanyahu. Famously, they don't get along that great. I think Trump was really mad that Netanyahu came out and congratulated Biden after Biden won very quickly. I don't think Trump forgives that stuff very, very easily. So he's saying we had a great relationship. We did great work together. But if you're listening to the specifics, most of these are all great stuff Trump did. So it's sort of funny and clever, but he's sending a signal that I'm with him. He's my guy still, but I'm going to give you a list of all the great stuff I did. And he's going to sit here and listen to all
designated it, but got it built at a price that nobody's seen for 40 years. We got it built. It's beautiful, all Jerusalem stone, right from nearby, and it's something that's very special, and recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, something that they talked about for 70 years, and they weren't able to get it, and I got it. And with the historic Abraham Accord, something that was really an achievement that was, I think, going to become more and more important, because we achieved the most significant Middle East peace agreements in half a century, but the Abraham Accords in particular, and I really believe that many countries will soon be joining this amazing peace and economic development transaction. It really is a big economic development transaction. I think we're going to have a lot of people signing up very quickly. Unfortunately, for 4 years, nobody signed up. Nobody did anything for 4 years except in the negative.
Yeah, a very interesting point that Joe Biden basically abandoned that, which was objectively productive, keeping the Middle East more peaceful, basically by making everyone economic partners. It's amazing how that stuff works, how when people get along on a financial level, then people end up doing good work together. And Trump did that. He had everyone going. Everyone was rowing in the same direction in the Middle East for the first time in my lifetime. And then Biden just dropped it, I'm guessing mostly just to spite Trump. I don't think he really had a huge ideological opposition to it. Who would? It was who would oppose the Abraham Accords? It seemed like it's something that everyone would agree with. It was a good idea. So anyway, Biden just didn't pursue it.
Unfortunately, the weakness and incompetence of those years, those past 4 years, the grave damage around the globe that was done, including in the Middle East, grave damage all over the globe. The horrors of October 7th would never have happened if I were president. The Ukraine and Russia disaster would never have happened if I were president. Over the past 16 months, Israel has endured a sustained, aggressive, and murderous assault on every front, but they
This is great. Just a reminder, first of all, the October 7th would not have happened if Trump was president. The Ukraine war, which is totally unrelated to any of this, would not have happened if Trump was president. A point straight out of Breaking Biden was something I get a little twinkle in my eye every time Trump says that, which is an idea that really, I gotta say, it really dawned on no one. And then I personally mainstream that in my book, Breaking Biden, and now everyone talks about it as if it's a given, and it is totally true, and I love it. So I feel very proud of that one. And then him noting that Israel has sustained a multiple front war for a very long time is a big deal for all of you Israel haters out there and people who want us to have no not participate at all and to be completely isolationist. I think there's a little difference between America first and total isolationism, and it's important to note that Israel is picked on mercilessly by some of the worst actors on the planet on a constant basis. And you got to think about their strategic alliance with us and whether or not that matters. When you do that, consider how much they take on.
But they fought back bravely. You see that, you know that. What we have witnessed is an all-out attack on the very existence of a Jewish state in the Jewish homeland. The Israelis have stood strong and united in the face of an enemy that has kidnapped, tortured, raped, and slaughtered innocent men, women, children, and even little babies. I want to salute the Israeli people for meeting this trial with courage and determination and unflinching resolve. They have been strong. In our meetings today, the Prime Minister and I focused on the future, discussing how we can work together to ensure Hamas is eliminated and ultimately restore peace to a very troubled region. It's been troubled, but what's happened in the last 4 years has.
Yeah, so and all this is all great for me to hear because as someone who has to spend time on the X platform where I agree with conservatives have so much momentum, but the sort of anti-Israel bias that's there even amongst conservatives, amongst the popular voices there, is not something I share. I understand it that there's a pushback from the America First side that we should not have deep ties to Israel any longer for whatever reason, but I'm never into it, and I love hearing Trump say that, particularly when he acknowledges the sustained attack that they've taken and the specific nature of the brutal terror that took place on October the 7th, and how that does need to be met with the great retaliation from Israel, and for Trump to snap a towel, congratulate them on their fight back, I think is good. Also noting that it is the one Jewish state on earth. So if you're picking on Israel and you've singled out Israel as the font of all of people's problems, it is noteworthy that you are singling out the only Jewish state on the planet that's the size of New Jersey physically. So just note that maybe perhaps that the people who harbor the anti-Semitism in their hearts, that a lot of their anger and animosity towards Israel is related to that, the fact that they are the one Jewish state. It's important to note. Here we go.
But we'll only be satisfied when all of these problems are solved, and we have the team to solve them, and that's going to happen. And it's going to happen, I think, very quickly. I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good. And it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site. But the people will be able to live in comfort and peace, and we'll make sure something really spectacular is done. They're going to have peace. They're not going to be shot at and killed and destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative.
So we're all building up to this big moment, and then Trump drops one of the most explosive bombs, figuratively speaking, that I've seen him on these press conferences, and I've been watching them for a long time. Here it is.
It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it, and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. I got to say, I got to confide in the audience that I watched this while I was on my bicycle in the garage. It's not a bicycle; it's a stationary bike, and it's something that was a huge part of my routine last year before things got very spicy politically. And I think it was my first bicycle ride of the year. And I was reminded instantly, I was listening to the year while I was riding, thinking, oh, this is why I don't have time to exercise anymore. This is why. This is what's happened. Is that every time you feel like you're on top of stuff, Trump announces we're taking over the Gaza Strip.
Site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there, redevelopment? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you see this idea as a way to expand the boundaries of Israel and to have a longer peace, even though the Israeli people know how important that land is to you and your citizens?
I love how most of this line of questioning is actually pretty good, but I like how the first thing is, what is your authority? It's like, well, everything is messed up and we're the 800-pound gorilla in the world. And it's just been so bad for so long, and it's just so distracting for so long. I mean, our authority is that we're just going to do it, right?
The space is inherited by the Palestinians as well.
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and demolished buildings falling all over. It's just a terrible sight. I've studied it. I've studied this very closely over a lot of months, and I've seen it from every different angle. And it's a very, very dangerous place to be, and it's only going to get worse. And I think this is an idea that's gotten tremendous, and I'm talking about from the highest level of leadership, gotten tremendous praise. And if the United States can help to bring stability and peace in the Middle East, we'll do that. Bibi?
Okay, so this is big. So that's his explanation. I'll break down some of the big thoughts here, but I want to hear this Netanyahu's reaction.
I mentioned again tonight our three goals, and the third goal is to make sure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again. President Trump is taking it to a much higher level. He sees a different future for that piece of land that has been the focus of so much terrorism, so many attacks against us, so many trials and so many tribulations. He has a different idea, and I think it's worth paying attention to this. We're talking about it. He's exploring it with his people, with his staff. I think it's something that could change.
Yeah, so he's saying that this is just an outside-the-box thing. And so this is what it comes down to. And I'm going to give you guys my thoughts. I want you to all hear the context before I give you my thoughts. First of all, you got to read between the lines. Look at how Trump's talking about this. He's talking about this like it's a building project, that he's a builder, he's a developer. He sees a plot of land and thinks this could be so much more. He's always doing this. If you notice, this is a pattern with a lot of his observations. Mar-a-Lago, which he bought very cheaply, and he thought this could be an extraordinary property. He drives through California, and he sees how California used to be this sort of breadbasket of the world, and now it's not, and he wonders why. And then he gets obsessed with things like the smelt, and that's why he warned us about all the fires, because he didn't like it, because it puts him off when he sees land that's not being used. So he goes over there to the Middle East. He sees what's going on in Gaza. It's been a constant thing ever since I've been aware of international news, world affairs, since I could read a newspaper. The Middle East, in particular, the Palestine, which is not a real place, but the Gaza region, has been the most perilous region on the planet, with a couple exceptions. I mean, sub-Saharan Africa, but other than that, And you see how Hamas has governed it. Things have gotten much worse. It seems like every permutation that we've seen in my lifetime, things only get worse, they get more chaotic. Trump, obviously, as he declared, very deeply committed to Israel. I think a lot of people share Trump's commitment to Israel for a number of reasons that we can develop on other shows. But the main thing that's going on is that Trump sees that Israel's stability is important, thinks it's strategically important for a number of reasons. And what's going on there is a big headache, and it's not good. It's a big waste of time. It's a symbol of death and destruction. And remember, the goal here is not just isolationism. America First, not just isolationist. America First is about peace through strength. So what's going on there? It's not peace and there's no strength. So us opting out, all that's doing is leading to these chaotic hostage situations, mass terror, death and destruction. And is there another way? Is it just we do nothing? Or is it just that we fund Israel? Like, what is it? Is there something else that we can do that can maybe bring something lasting, something peaceful in this region that's lasting so that we could get past this moment that's been going on for decades? We've had constant headaches in this region for decades. So I'm just trying to help people understand. I'm not trying to evaluate everything about it. Of course, I'm loosely excited about it. You guys can tell my voice. But he's talking about this like it's a building project. We're going to take over Gaza. We're going to do a job with it too. He says, we'll love it and be responsible for dismantling all the dangerous bombs and other weapons on the site, get rid of the destroyed buildings, create economic development. We'll supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing. This is him just saying, Daddy's home. I'm taking charge here. You guys could not handle it. And so we're going to build the Riviera of the Middle East, he goes on to say. So even Netanyahu looks stunned by this. You cannot take it literally. I think for a number of reasons it's not necessarily practical, but it's meant to be refreshing. I think this is meant to be, we're now looking at this region in a different way because things cannot go on the way they've gone on. So Joel Pollack at Breitbart has gone through and he's broken down, I think, a lot of arguments in favor, arguments against. But again, it's not going to be literally the way Trump laid it out. That's not it. It's a negotiating position. He's saying we're doing maximum pressure on Iran. We're saying that Hamas is going to get wiped out. We're saying Israel is going to stay right where it's at. And the United States is going to go, we're going to take control, but we're going to get investment from other people. But we're going to have a long-term economic interest. And the reason the economic interest is important for Americans is because if we're going to put effort, if we're going to put capital, if we're going to put time, and potentially human beings' lives are going to be lost. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. I don't want American boots on the ground in a war capacity here. But if we're going to do that, then we're going to take a stake. Same thing with the Panama Canal. So that's why he says we want a long-term thing, because if we're going to rebuild it, if we're going to be part of a rebuilding process, and we're going to be doing all the negotiating, we're going to do all the hard work, we're going to be doing all the physical work, physical labor, or at least organizing it, then we're going to get a piece of the action. Because Trump wouldn't want this to become some big, beautiful vacation destination, and then America's cut out of it. Because who's going to take their place? No one better than America. It's going to be the bad guys. So, and if Israel just expands, then they're just going to be under attack again. So that's not really going to help also. So we could be a real stabilizing force in the region. Now, can we do this in a way that lives up to our America First values? That's going to be a challenge. But I'll tell you, there is no neat way to do this. If we're committed to helping solve the problem in Gaza and not just letting what's gone on there continue to go on, then you've got to think outside the box at this point. So it's been so destroyed, it's not really inhabitable now. So there needs to be a clearing out and a rebuilding process. And the Palestinian government is not going to do that. They can't do that. They can't do anything. Aloha at alexmarlow.com. If you want to be a part of the show, I will tell you that I have a new sponsor to the show, and I couldn't be more thrilled about this. As a man of a certain age, you know, a lot of my free time is spent grilling. And I'm in California, but even if you're not in California, when it's cold outside, you do not need to stop grilling when you've got a Solaire infrared grill. You guys have heard about Solaire before. If you're a podcast listener, I know Victor Davis Hansen's a big Solaire guy, and it's a big endorsement because he's a serious thinker. And heats up in 3 minutes, moves fast, and even in the cold, you can do it. And it heats up your food directly, not the air around the food like a conventional grill. It's not like an oven. It is a direct heat, intense heat, and it gives you the juiciest food you'll ever taste. It's juicier than gas. Charcoal doesn't dry out your meat because it's cooking it fast. But for me, as a steak guy, you get that sear. And that delicious crust is that caramelization. Oh, we got to get in the caramelization zone with that crust. You get your favorite rub on there, and it's so good. It just elevates it to another level, and you can only get it if you get a ultra hot grill. This is why the Solaire Grill Stone is the best hot grill. BestHotGrill.com to pick one up is BestHotGrill.com. Tastes great, great people. Made in America. They're really local to me, so I'm going to go out there and visit them. But it gets hotter than anything you've ever experienced. You can get really small ones. Mine's really compact, like the size of my computer. Or you can get a big one too. You can get one that get like 100 burgers on there. If that's your jam. I'm not the type of guy who's ever had to cook 100 burgers, but I bet you could. So USA made Solaire infrared grills, as hot as it's going to get. You're going to get that great sear on your meat, and anything you can cook on there is great. Great sponsors, great people. BestHotGrill.com, new advertiser, glad to have them. So it is true, though, also that this is a big strategic asset. It's a free trade zone, thriving, or it could become a real big a hub, a centerpiece of global trade. You could put a strategic base there. There's lots of things that can be done. And if it's a prosperous economic region, then that could really benefit a lot of the world, and America in particular, if we got a foothold there. So there's a lot of big questions here that we've raised, and the first one for me was instantly I thought, well, where are the Gazans going to go? This is a big thing. What are they even doing now? Because it doesn't seem like anyone wants them as refugees. Egypt and Jordan have refused to take them. Apparently, the only country that's really stepped up and said we'll take them is Indonesia. So I don't get that. Odd. So looking into it. So that's a big issue. So where are people going to go? I mean, if you take people off their land, you kick them off their land, they're not going to be happy about it. And that's not really what we've been all about lately in America. So that's very complicated. I don't know the answer to that, which is one of the tells to me. This is not meant to be totally taken literally, because we're going to have to come up with something. Next thing, are U.S. troops going to be at risk? We pretty much in the America First side of the aisle have a zero tolerance towards this. So how many American lives are worth this project? I mean, it's got to be pretty close to zero, right? So that's another complicating thing, because if he can't reassure even his own base that lives aren't going to be lost, American lives aren't going to be lost, we're not going to see this as worth it. And the next thing is who's going to pay for it. Now, other nations have got to step up to help us, but strategically, or not strategically, historically, these sort of nation-building type efforts, America ends up paying for it, and then we end up getting hosed. We have to hold the bag. So the question that was immediately brought up was, is this legal, by the redheaded reporter, those of you who are watching that on the screen. And this is one we've tracked down, and it does seem like there's plenty of legal precedent for this. And again, we can explore that on a less busy moment. So, but will this even be seen as legitimate? Saudi Arabia came out and said they're against it. Obviously, Hamas is against it. You know, there's people there who are not going to be happy about this taking place. And we need most entities, not Hamas, but we need a lot of entities on board. Because if people feel like they've got a stake and they can get some investment going out of the region, then all of a sudden we're going to have a coalition. We might be able to pull this thing off. So that's a lot of questions. I got to admit, that is a lot of questions, because we don't want American troops at risk. We don't know what to do with the Gazans in the time being, and we got to get other nations on board. So it's a big, hefty negotiation that's going to have to go on. But Trump's saying basically what's going on now is not acceptable, and if we just gets rebuilt now, then it's just going to get bombed again. And how long are we going to do this? And how long does Israel, our allies, want to share a border with terrorists who want to kill them? So complicated stuff, and I admire Trump's outside-the-box thinking, and I applaud it. I don't think it's literally going to take place, but it is there hope, because now there has been this paradigm shift where Trump is now respected in the world, that when he says that we're going to get this done, we're going to clear out the bad guys, and the good guys, you guys are going to all put some money in this. We're going to work on this together. America will take the lead. We're going to rebuild it. I'm a builder. I've got a vision for this site, and this is going to be a peaceful economic hub in the area. And instead of having more death and destruction and, as he says, bad luck, then now all of a sudden we're going to have something that was once a miserable existence, and now there is going to be a long-term peace. That is something that could be pretty remarkable. And if there's one person on earth who could pull it off, it's Trump. So I'm very excited from a news front. I just watching Netanyahu look like his jaw hit the floor the same way mine did when I was on the bike. I can't believe this is happening. It is unreal to see it. So we're going to take over Gaza. We're going to own it. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But it's a starting place for maybe something that's better, because pretty much isn't anything going to be better? Isn't anything better than what we've had to this point? And I think that is it's a refreshing thing that Trump does for us. He makes us try to think of solutions when it seems like there's only two options and neither of them are good. Then sometimes he'll throw out a third option. This was actually my favorite moment of the whole press conference. Check this out.
Go ahead.
Afghan suffered women as high expectation from you. Do you have any plan to change Afghanistan situation? Are you able to recognize Taliban? Because I'm an Afghan journalist, Afghan suffered women. Any comment about Afghanistan? What's your future plan for Afghan people, especially Afghanistan?
I have a little hard time understanding you. Where are you from? Oh. Actually, it's a beautiful voice and a beautiful accent. The only problem is I can't understand a word you're saying. But I just say this, good luck, live in peace. Go ahead, please.
Oh, beautiful. He's the best. He's the best.
That's okay. Yeah, please.
He does stuff that infuriates you sometimes, though rarely these days. But you see that's what in his heart. He's just such a good guy. He's like, he doesn't want to hurt this woman's feelings. I have no reason to hurt your feelings. I like you. You're beautiful. I would like for you to come to my golf course and have a Diet Coke with me. But I can't understand what you're saying. Live in peace. Terrific stuff. You see his instincts, and that's what he's doing. He's doing his daddy routine. That's what's going on right now, and I'm in for it. I'm all in on it. Let's do it. Let's see what we got. Maximum pressure campaign on Iran, clean up the region, shut down Hamas. Hamas calls it irresponsible, ridiculous, and absurd. Cool. Let's do it. All right. Tons of other stuff going on in the news that I will mow through for you. Defense Secretary Hegseth torching DEI, the establishment, in his first week at the Pentagon. Christina Wong's got a big report on us, taking out all the DEI pride months, all that stuff, the identity politics months we got. He's authorizing airstrikes on terrorists, ending diversity, equity, inclusion programs on bases. Big reforms coming. All this is good. War fighters getting ready to go, and he's getting rewarded handsomely. The U.S. Army had its best recruiting month in 12 years in December. In January, had its best recruiting month in 15 years. So now America's youth, we've got some sanity again. People want to actually go and serve under Pete Hegseth, which is one of my main points. You heard it here, guys. You heard it here. I only toot my own horn because it's competitive space here in the podcasting world. I'm trying to give you guys tomorrow's news today. I said one of the reasons Hegseth is such an important confirmation is because if I was a young guy thinking about signing up, I would go, he would make me want to enlist. A guy who clearly has the back of veterans, has the back of troops, has served himself, handsome, charismatic, great speaker, loves his wife, loves Jesus. What could you want more than that? That's it. So, and ending all the woke stuff is just so beautiful because the left really can't handle that. Letitia James out in New York, one of the most flagrant lawfare practitioners who targeted Donald Trump before she was even elected, telling hospitals to ignore Trump's order to protect minors from sex mutilating drugs and surgeries. So Trump is banning all sorts of scientific experimentation on children via these surgeries and chemical castration that goes on. It's a big thing. A children's hospital in Los Angeles, which has the largest pediatric gender clinic, announced that they're not starting any new hormone treatments on minor patients. This is great. They're going to make our institutions great again, and that's a big deal. Children's Hospital does a lot of good work, but then they also have this gender clinic it makes you repulsed by the whole operation, how they can experiment on children. That's all it is. It was so important, that clip I played of Cynthia Nixon, the actress, yesterday on yesterday's show, if you guys didn't check it out. Yesterday's show was a great show. I did 15 minutes of really efficient news, and then I had a great interview covering some deep ground with Brian Callen, who's a comedian and podcaster, really interesting guy, has had a super interesting life. So I would check that out. But I spent a few minutes going through Cynthia Nixon, this actress who's homosexual. It's got trans kid, it's got trans nephew, got trans friends, and obviously they're getting groomed. They're getting groomed by people who are normalizing this deeply abnormal behavior. These are either children going through phases or have severe mental health issues, possibly from social media, possibly from other medications they're getting, possibly from lack of God, broken homes, whatever it is. But they're working stuff out, and these predators, often in the medical field, they're experimenting on them. And of course we have to shut it down. And Trump is going, we're doing it. We're shutting it all down. And then you get people like Tish James saying, we're not going to let him shut it down. Well, oh no. That is deeply unacceptable. And something that we're going to actually, we're going to have to keep an eye on that very, very closely. The left is freaking out, needless to say. I've got some clips on how they're dealing with this. This is a Congresswoman, LaMonica McIver from New Jersey. Let's see how you're represented here. Check this out.
Republicans, that we will not take this. We will fight back. Fight back. And as I close out, because I know we've been out here for a long time, and God damn it, shut down the Senate. We are at war. Anytime a person can pay $250 million into a campaign and they be given full access to the Department of Treasury of the United States of America, we are at war. Thank you. Thank you.
You guys know that language is just so unacceptable. We could never talk like that. We are at war on the right. I mean, that would be called insurrection. That would be called calls to violence. That's how people get. Is that not a call for Donald Trump to get assassinated? Is that not a call for Elon Musk to get assassinated? They're talking about the Doge stuff. So people are really freaking out about Doge just pointing the waste in the government and saying we're shutting it down. Why are we obliged to fund all this nonsense? We're funding all this gender bender stuff overseas. Like, why are our tax dollars going to that? A Boston University employee threatening Elon Musk Doge staffers that wants them dead or alive. Posting on Blue Sky. It's the why is this? We have a full report on this at Breitbart if you want more details. But it's these calls to violence because Musk is cutting some people off. Chuck Schumer was talking about how this is an unelected secret group running rampant through the executive branch. What is the DOJ? I keep citing this as an example. You'll hear me cite. I bet 100 times this year. The DOJ appointed Jack Smith. It was entirely unconstitutional to try to take out Trump on behalf of Joe Biden. Joe Biden runs the DOJ. It was an unconstitutional appointment. It went on for 18, 19 months before finally people had the presence of mind to say, oh, yeah, this is not a real job. You can't do this. And then he got shut down. So he was hired by Joe Biden, essentially, technically by Merrick Garland, but Joe Biden is in charge of Merrick Garland. And you're allowed to just go through Melania's underwear drawer trying to look for ways to take out Trump. So I don't hear anything about secret unelected groups of people. They're appointing people to harass their political opponents, try to jail them. So we saw the FBI, we had a story on this at Breitbart, that they had, I think it was 5,000 people working on the J6 cases. I had this set aside. 5,000 FBI employees worked on January the 6th cases. So this is while crime is going up in our cities. And they're focused on the January 6th people who, wandered in to the Capitol. Why are they doing that? For political purposes. So I don't think it's going to work. They're just trying to get their footing. They're trying to get some momentum. Here's Ayanna Pressley. This is the squad member, Congresswoman, protesting. Let's see how this goes.
Elon Musk has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Elon Musk has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Elon Musk has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Elon Musk has got to go. Hey,
Those of you who've been with me for a while, you know what my take is going to be. It is one of the signs of their strength is how clever their protest chants are. This protest chant is no good. Hey, ho, ho, Elon Musk has got to go. That is played out. We've been seeing this one for 30 years. It was never clever to begin with. They've got some great protest chants, but this is not a good one. So being out there saying Elon Musk has got to go, he's working at the pleasure of the president. So unless Donald Trump is convinced by these protests, this is not doing anything. They're trying to gin up their base because they know they're going to get their clock cleaned in the midterms as of now. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get their base reengaged. So that's all this is. It's not a threat to anything we're doing at the moment, but we'll keep an eye on it to see if their tactics improve. Because I don't think this is necessarily going to work, but they're trying to frame it as though Musk is the shadow president. That could drive a wedge between Trump and Musk, and it could potentially turn off some potential voters. So that is what they're trying to do, is what they're going for. But it's a very weak effort. I think this is pretty pathetic compared to, imagine the protests. Remember, right away, the pink hat marches, those were so big. And now this is all they got. Elon Musk has got to go. I had one more DEI thing. This is from Aaron Cirabarium, who I think writes at the Free Beacon. He's got a scoop that the Brown University Medical School now gives diversity, equity, and inclusion more weight than excellent clinical skills in the promotion of criteria for faculty. It feels like there's something very strange happening, because I track where my wife went to medical school, and very good school. And it just seems like it got more woke by the year. And she got out in 2017, and I feel like it just got on way escalated and accelerated the wokeness since then. And we keep an eye on it. And it feels like, the tide was going out, and it's just like you're lucky if you got to the shore before you get sucked up into a rip current. And that's what it feels like if you survive these schools. And I'm hoping one day soon we'll get back to clinical excellence as what the standard is for doctors. But we can't play with this stuff. This is the exact sort of thing that leads to mass deaths. This is the exact sort of thing that leads to helicopters crashing into passenger planes, because you do diversity and equity over excellence. You've got to have excellence only in the medical schools. That should be the only standard. You got to have the smartest people, the most capable people. It needs to be a DEI-free environment. If you need a life-saving care, it does not matter the color of the skin of your doctor. You want your doctor to be excellent, not someone who got in on a diversity hire. And then not to mention, if you have a terrific brain and you do have, one of those inclusion categories, either skin tone or sexual orientation or whatever, do you really want your patients thinking you're only here because you were at Brown's DEI program? I don't think so. That's not a good way to live. All right. A couple more quick ones. First, U.S. military flight carrying illegal criminal aliens lands in Guantanamo. We talked about this on yesterday's show. The criminal aliens not entitled to be here. They're going to go somewhere. Maybe they'll go back to their country of origin. Maybe they'll go to Guantanamo. Maybe they'll go to El Salvador. I'm all in on it. The NFL is going to remove end racism from the end zones ahead of the Super Bowl. So here's the thing with this one, which is why, of course, you don't want to get mad at people for doing the right thing, okay? You always got to catch yourself. You don't want to get mad at people for doing the right thing. And the NFL is doing the right thing here. And we know the NFL is sort of more conservative these days, even though they did cheat to make sure Taylor Swift is at the Super Bowl. But I have to say, did we end racism? Did we actually end racism? Or was there not as much racism to begin with? So if you're taking the end racism, stenciling, whatever it is, out of the end zone, either we fixed racism or it was a lie to begin with that we were that racist. It was either just for show to begin with, just because you thought you would make more money doing the woke pandering. And now you don't think you'll make as much money doing the woke pandering, or we ended racism. It's just one of those things. So it's an admission, really, because we all know that we're no more or less racist now than we were 6-7 years ago, whenever they put it in there, 5 years ago, whatever it was. So we're no more or less racist now. So it's an admission that they've just been pandering to the woke mob, caving the woke mob, one of the most popular cultural institutions, the single most popular cultural institution right now in the United States is the NFL. And this is them basically saying we were just pandering to the BLM crowd. So It's a little frustrating, right? I'm happy they did it, but it's a little frustrating that those of us who were so appalled by it and we acted like we were taught that we were the weird ones in 2020. Now all of a sudden, yeah, we're just taking it out. It's just going away. So good news, but also it's also kind of funky stuff. All right, last one for today. Gavin Newsom's going to the White House to beg for federal money. But this is right after, I mentioned this yesterday, the legislature passed an anti-Trump spending bill. So $50 million for anti-Trump stuff out in California. Now Newsom wants federal money to deal with the fires. I will say, will Newsom veto the $50 million anti-Trump bill? That's the question. There's probably a veto-proof majority of California legislators, but really he should veto it as a symbol to Trump and say, hey, I earmark $50 million to go after you, and I'm gonna put that in my pocket. It's not gonna happen. The veto, not the money. I'm gonna put the veto in my pocket. So we're not gonna do that. Will he do that? I don't know if Newsom will do that. I don't know if he's capable of it. Trump is mocking him for his high-speed rail. That's great. So the high-speed rail is fake. Again, the show's going to go too long, so I don't want to do that right now. But the high-speed rail is one of the biggest jokes here in California that we've been talking about it for decades. Never happens. We constantly mock it. It's all a big joke. And Trump is making it a big joke, which it is, because it is. If it was going to get built, it would be built by now. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do it, but it's just we've been talking about it my whole life. It's another one that my whole life we talk about high-speed rails. Obama was nonstop high-speed rail talk. I mean, Obama hasn't been president for over 8 years now. So he did it his whole administration, and then we haven't stopped talking about it since then. So always been Democrat governance in California. No high-speed rails, not coming. Folks, this is the financial emergency. BRICS nations, China, Russia, and 8 allies are finalizing a payment system to destroy the U.S. dollar. They already control 36% of global GDP, and they're growing 5 times faster than America. U.S. sanctions on Russia kind of backfired, and now Putin's rushing BRICS to erase the dollar forever. 4 major economies already trade without the dollar. Elon Musk warns nations are fleeing the dollar, and billionaire Sam Zell admits cash could wipe you out. Once BRICS flips the switch, could happen any day, the dollar could plunge to pennies overnight. Your savings, your retirement, your buying power, all of it goes away. But you're not helpless. Physical gold and silver are the only assets that they can't inflate, freeze, or erase. You guys know I partner with Priority Gold. My friends over there have a free wealth defense guide that reveals a little-known IRS loophole to shield your wealth with precious metals before BRICS acts. Text FREEDOM to 24999 now for your free copy. That's FREEDOM to 24999 or visit PriorityGold.com. Time's running out. Don't risk it. Don't let the dollar collapse and have that steal your retirement. You can fight back today. So simple. Text FREEDOM to 24999 now. All right, I got email. I was thinking about not doing email, but I can't resist. All of you email me aloha@alexmarlow.com. I love it. Love the participation element of the show. Joanna in Charlotte, North Carolina emails me. Hi, Alex. Congrats on the science fair victory. Master Marlow winning the science fair. And you got to give an assist to Mrs. Dr. Marlow on that one. He's in the first grade. Can't do it all himself. All right. He says, I may steal and suggest the idea for my daughter's project this spring. The project, for those of you who missed the show earlier this week, I think it was Monday's show when I mentioned this, you put food dye on your tongue, and then you put one of those little binder rings on the tongue, and you count the amount of taste buds within that ring, and you do the experiment for different people. And our hypothesis was the greater the level of taste buds, the pickier the eater you would be. And that's exactly what turned out to be the case. We also learned that Dada Marlow basically has no taste buds, which explains why I might like a smoky mezcal or a very hot chicken when I'm getting my chicken, because I need to amp up that flavor, or else I won't like it. So interesting stuff there. So look, it was a great experiment, and I highly recommend it. You know what is interesting is that today as we're recording this. Mrs. Dr. Marlow is getting hauled into the principal's office or the vice principal's or something because Master Marlow Jr. has been absent from school too much. I think he's missed 6 days, and 1 was when he was sick, and 5 was for a family vacation, a family reunion. So we're getting hauled in for that. I have not seen the trophy for Master Marlow's science victory. So there's apparently a award ceremony. We didn't even hear about that. So he wins a science fair, first grader. We want to encourage him. And I don't get it. I don't get it. So but hey, if he had missed some school, then we'd have their attention because of the tax dollars. Irritating. All right. Joanna from Charlotte continues. Also, I know of several moms, including myself, that have been calling our Senator Tom Tillis to encourage confirmation of JFK Jr. and Kash Patel. I will say all the confirmations seem to be moving along nicely, which would be a huge accomplishment if we only lost Gates of all the initial nominees. Bondi's pretty good too, by the way. So that's not a huge setback there. That would be pretty amazing. So, especially considering the Senate's still pretty narrow. It shows the power of the grassroots. But I will say that people are pushing the Tillises of the world who are sort of moderate, too moderate for my liking. And apparently his voicemail is full. That should not be allowed. So I will look into this. But this is a reminder to keep calling your senators, keep calling your representatives, write them letters, do whatever you got to do to get their attention. It really does matter. They keep an eye on this stuff. I know I do. I look at the comments of Breitbart. It's like I don't want to stray too far away from where the audience is at a given moment. It's important to do that. So anyway, it's important. So let's hope everyone gets confirmed. But you got to keep putting pressure on those people who are the swing votes. All right, Steve emails. Hello, Alex. I love the podcast. Great to hear you back on the air again. I like the show's theme music. It has an 80s synth pop sound to it that I like, but for some reason it reminds me of the music playing when Buffalo Bill does his sexy little dance in The Silence of the Lambs. It absolutely does. We got to play that at some point. Silence of the Lambs is an unbelievable movie. Any of you who have not seen it, it's scary, but it's really just a incredible. I think it was one of the few movies, there's only been 1 or 2 ever, that won the Academy Award for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay. So I think it won all the major Academy Awards. So I think that's kind of remarkable. Not like the Academy Awards mean anything these days, but in the early 90s, it meant a lot. But that was very strange music that is playing in my head now, but I'm not going to sing it for you guys. Sorry to put that image in your head if you've seen that movie, but please don't let that be a reason to change it. No, I like the theme music. There's a story behind it that I will withhold for a different date, but it is an 80s synthwave type vibe, though it's more contemporary. All right. John Hall emails. This is a challenge one. Why are conservative hosts like Mike Slater, who hosts Breitbart News Daily for me, cheering for a Gaza takeover? What does this have anything to do with getting the U.S. back on track and taking care of U.S. citizens? So we're going to deconstruct and reconstruct a piece of land with no vital national interest in a region where terrorism runs rampant. Sounds very Ukraine-y. So back to nation building again, and MAGA is supposed to cheer it on because of Trump. Where's the damned wall? Why aren't the immigration protesters blocking roads and not being peaceful protesters, all being rounded up? That one's kind of a clunky sentence. All of them. Shutting down roads is not peaceful constitutional protest. Why aren't the officers in the correction system denying ICE access along with politicians being arrested for obstruction, harboring, and racketeering conspiracy to violate immigration law? Okay, so we're getting into a bit of a rant here. But I think the beginning of this is really important because Trump is going to have to answer to this if he's being literal. And you guys have heard the show to this point. I don't necessarily think he's 100% being literal. And we have not seen the full plan. That's what I want to emphasize. We haven't seen Trump's full plan. If he's got a full plan, and maybe this is just a way to bargain with people the same way he says we're doing tariffs, and then 24 hours later he's not doing tariffs because he got something else he really wanted. It's very possible that's what's happening here. So is why we would cheer a Gaza takeover. The reasons why is because, first of all, some of us don't see Ukraine and Israel as the same. I'm in that group. I don't have any connection to Ukraine. Russia has a much deeper connection to Ukraine than we do. Israel, the one Jewish state on earth where the Holy Land is, they have been incredible. I think caretakers of the most historic sites on the planet. I think that they are a thriving democracy with culture and tech and innovation and intelligence that is useful to Americans. And it is a very small beacon of hope in a otherwise completely desolate and bleak region on this planet that we reside. To me, that's much more important. I understand that I'm not going to convince everyone in that regard. I know in this audience that's not going to be a black and white issue, that a lot of you are just over it, and I understand that. But for me, it's worth it to some degree. I don't think we need to lose a bunch of American lives over it. But overall, if we can stabilize that part of the region to Israel's benefit, they can benefit us as well, because they've been great strategic partners. They really do hold down the fort, so to speak, there. They also have innovation. They have intelligence they can share with us. They have better intelligence pound for pound than we do by a mile also. So it's useful. But this is a real, I still take this challenge very seriously, that what does this have to do with the America First agenda, essentially? And Trump's going to have to share that, or else he's going to lose some of his own support in this regard, particularly if it gets expensive and lives are lost. I also think it's maybe different than traditional nation building, in the sense that in the way that George Bush had done it, the way that, basically most of the Republican Democrat establishments had done it over the last 20 years, there was no respect in the region. First of all, they were much broader areas that we were sort of half conquering. It was really sort of we're going to wipe out the current regime and install a new regime, but we don't really have a big stake in it. I think we could have a bigger stake here because Trump would set it up, so there's a bigger financial stake for America. And also, time has marched on, and this region continues to be so destabilizing that things change and people's views on certain things change, because whatever we've been attempting for so long has been so clearly not working. It's been so clearly getting worse, that how long do we want to deal with it? And if we feel like we can get some advantage in cleaning up the region, I'm cool with it. The other thing is the level of respect that people have for Trump right now. I feel like most of the world is going to want to see his vision out. So I don't know exactly what it is. Again, I'm not taking him literally here. That's why I'm not doing any cheerleading, but I'm interested. I'm intrigued by it. And I'm net more positive than negative that Trump wants to do something productive. But that said, if it comes at the expense of building the wall and rounding up illegal aliens, then no, of course not. But it doesn't have to be an either or. It can be a both and. So if it's a both and, it's not my top priority, but I'm interested. I'm interested to see what he's got, but it's a great challenge from John, and I appreciate I will take challenges on the air as when I feel like I have something intelligent to say, which is often the case, I would like to think. But that's it. That's going to be today's show, and it was a historic show. We got great stuff coming up for you the rest of the week. We're locking in some big locked-in Senator Lee. He'll be here next week on Monday. We've got Xavier DeRusso from PragerU, one of the most captivating Gen Z voices, going to be on the show either tomorrow or Friday. And plus all this hot news. This is a hot time to be in the podcasting space. So I thank you for telling 10,000 friends and family members, subscribing, liking, leaving a comment if you got one. I'll read some of those on the air as well coming up. Thanks to producer Misty, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.